Good evening. Tonight, a bipartisan caucus is critical of the proposed NASA science budget cuts. Space Systems Command is launching an orbital watch program for the commercial sector. A company called Outpost got a contract to develop reentry shield tech for cargo deliveries from space, something we talk a lot about in the show, and a commercial space station from Blue Origin you've probably never heard of. This and more coming up. From the news desk at the Center for Space Commerce and Finance, my name is Thomas Andrew Olson, and this is The Unknown Quantity. Hello there again. As always, this is hosted by the Center for Space Commerce and Finance. What is that? We obviously champion and strengthen emerging space startups, space scalable SMBs, and space adjacent enterprises worldwide through advisory, access, and advocacy across the funding spectrum. Our programs fortify business plans and investor readiness for founding teams at various levels of development, and we are here for that every day. We encourage our listeners and our fans to support our work. If you go to the QR code at the upper left of the screen, it will take you to our donation portal. And thanks so much in advance. Joining me now is one of my podcast producers, entrepreneur, one of my oldest space friends, Michael Lane from Liftport. Michael, great seeing you. Come on in, man.
Hey, how's things?
Hey, there he is. There he is. I'm bloodied, beaten, but unbowed today. I've had one of those days. It's like, God, the hits just keep coming. You go, okay, you know.
It's all good.
I know, but just wanted to mention before we get started on the news, Michael, you may have noticed something missing from my intro this evening, and that's because I'm announcing tonight that we will be pausing our monthly microgrant program as of this month for hopefully only a short period. We've been doing this for about 8 months, and we felt it was time to step back, look at a bunch of data, talk to all the applicants and the winners to see where we can make improvements in the program as a whole. We have to make some changes. We're going to do it, and we'll see where we can take it and make it even better. But that starts today, and unfortunately includes the month of April. We only had one applicant for the month of April so far. They usually come in way, at the last minute.
Right.
And so sorry to that guy, but we do have something else besides that, though. Having said all that, I've been remiss in this for a long time. I apologized last week. I said that I am pleased to announce that we do have a $1,000 March microgrant winner, and that is a company called Space Bar Africa out of Lagos, Nigeria. And that is going to be our first grant to that part of the world. They are a collection of what they describe themselves as about 1,500 space nerds whose mission is to provide telescope experiences to the public, especially young people and students. So I just thought I'd put that all out there to get started. I got about 6 news items that I just kind of picked out to look at. Anything specific you like to dive into first, or shall I just go ahead?
Well, a couple things before we get onto that. I mean,
Sure.
It's an interesting decision to pause the microgrants. Of course, I support it, and I want to stress that it's a pause. It's an evaluation period. What some folks don't know is that we have a pretty large sponsor who has been really terrific to us. And we have some obligations to them to report, to evaluate, to consider what's happening, what's good, what's bad, and then come back to them with recommendations. So it does make some sense to do this. It does make sense to do a bit of a pause over the summertime. So our hope is that we come back online with that pretty quickly. But it's going to take at least a month to hopefully not 3 months. So something like that. So, and then the second thing is congrats to Spacebar, right? They are our first microgrant winner. They are not our first African winner of a business plan competition.
No.
Space in Africa did a remarkable job.
They did.
Gosh, was it 6 years ago,
It
probably
was
something like that. Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
They did a remarkable job, and they have built an amazing business. So it's really kind of encouraging to see that work evolving. Space in Africa, that company is basically a news site for the African continent, focusing on space. They've got partnerships with folks in the Middle East. It's really fascinating what they've done with their business. One of the things they helped build was a Pan-African space agency, very similar to ESA, just a few weeks ago. It came online just a few weeks ago. It was years in development, but it only just came online a few months ago, or a few weeks ago. So
I have a question about that. Is that self-funded? Or are they getting funds from outside of Africa?
No, I think it's self-funded.
That's better.
No, it is the African equivalent of ESA, as my understanding, and they've got more than a dozen partners, partner nations involved. I think it's 22. I think it's actually bigger than ESA's original starting point. So no, it's pretty serious. I was really kind of blown away by it. So it's really terrific seeing Spacebar as the winner. It's also kind of great to see, that we have had an influence on some of the businesses over there. So it's been fun. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. You asked me what kind of news I want.
Yeah, I've got six. I got 6 things. I know you may have had a couple as well.
We've been talking about Jared Isaacman a lot lately.
Here we go.
Here we go again.
It's kind of the same topic, but with a Faustian spin on it.
Faustian spin. Now,
not everybody knows. Our dear friend Jeff Faust.
Not everybody knows that Jeff Faust has a PhD in physics. He is a badass in his own right. And more than 20 years ago, he stopped doing physics work and did a lot in publishing and media. So he actually runs the Space Review, and it's surprising how many people don't know that. So go take it away.
And he does go through the litany of what they talked about in that initial hearing pretty well. And you can kind of see once again where Mr. Eisenman kind of sidestepped certain things and kind of painted maybe too much of a rosy picture on other things. And of course, there's that guy Ed Markey, from Boston, and he's saying, so when you had that meeting with President Trump, was Elon Musk in the room?
Right.
Like that was the most important thing. Was Elon Musk in the room? Right. You're not going to answer the question.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it's a fair question to ask.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, if Elon Musk is in the room, what do you expect him to do? Is he giving him the stink eye? You know, it's like,
right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that means. What do you go with that?
Somebody said that conversation was Musk in the room was asked 6 times. I mean, that seems excessive, but I think that's what I heard is that. And so I'm like, okay, as an outsider, I kind of assumed that Musk was in the room. I think Musk was the guy who gave the nod. Seriously, what does Trump know about space? Not a goddamn thing. So he's going to go to trusted advisors. Well, if one of your advisors is the richest man in the world and he's made a bunch of money in space, you're probably going to ask your buddy, who do you recommend?
Mm-hmm.
And Musk is going to be like, hey, I know this guy Eisenman. He's really good, right? Like, I can understand how that conversation happened. I think it's naive to assume that Musk wasn't in the room. So just assume that he was. Like, I don't know why. That doesn't That
Yeah,
is
I
not
don't get
the
it.
most
I don't get why they have to
important
make a gotcha question out of it.
Right.
Like,
That's
this
not the
is,
most important question.
yeah.
Yeah. The most important questions are, in a very real sense, how do we beat China?
Mm-hmm.
What programs need to get cut or need not to get cut? And how are we going to deal with the fallout? Like, those are the questions that are actually substantive. If Musk was in the room or not, you're naive to think he wasn't. So,
But he would not make a commitment in any way about cutting anything.
no,
You know, including the gateway, which we all hate, and a lot of the Artemis stuff, which we all hate.
Some of us hate.
The two biggest drains on NASA budget right now are just the development costs for those items.
Right.
A lot of people think there's got to be more efficient and cheaper ways to do that, and we know that stuff exists.
Right.
And so that's the big argument, but no one wants to have that even at the committee hearing.
Right. First of all, vetting a NASA administrator is not the place to decide budgetary decisions. That man's job is not to decide the budget. That's Congress's job.
Yep, absolutely.
And so forcing him to answer budgetary questions, I mean, the right answer is not my job, Senator, and then move on, right?
Right, not my problem. That's your job.
Now this thing from the Planetary Society, I do think is really relevant to us, to our industry. Cutting science by 47% would plunge NASA into a dark age. I usually don't agree with the Planetary Society, but I kind of do this time.
It's a little hyperbolic, but not entirely without merit.
Yeah.
And we said this before. I don't know why they're doing it anyway. Like, NASA's budget is so minuscule compared to everything else. We spend $1 trillion on interest on the debt.
What could they possibly...
How do we get rid of that? Why do you have to cut space science?
Right. What could they possibly get that would actually make a difference, move the needle to the rest of the budget? And this part is really true. Now, I don't know who this guy is, actually, Senator Holland. But I think he's right. If you cut science programming, you hurt our whole country, national security, innovation, leadership. I don't know who this Democrat Maryland congressional delegate Van Hollen. I think that's right. Yeah. I do. I think this is one of our many shining beacons, and harming this has so many ripple effects. So,
well, I got to raise something. Just play devil's advocate for a minute.
Yeah.
If this is how the world is going to be now, from now on, no matter who's in, you're making these bizarre cuts and bizarre things. You're cutting science and you're cutting research and you're doing all this other stuff for whatever ideological viewpoint you come from to justify that. It does give us an opportunity to raise the question as to, well, how then do we fund fundamental science and research?
Right.
Because back in the Renaissance, they relied on the equivalent of billionaires.
Right. The patronage model
to fund these things.
Yeah.
Or they were self-funded. I mean, Sir Isaac Newton, was from landed gentry.
You're right.
Exactly. He had all the resources he needed to do whatever experiments he wanted to do. He didn't have to fight for his food. He took a year off to invent the calculus.
Right.
Just so he could solve certain problems in physics.
Right.
Had to invent a new tool to do it with.
Right. We don't live in that world anymore.
No, but this is how that world was done for centuries. And so even up through the 20th century, a lot of private entrepreneurs of philanthropists, I should say, have paid for stuff. I mean, at the end of his life, Andrew Carnegie, for example, gave away 90% of his wealth
Right.
to fund universities and libraries and programs of that nature. There might be a piece of that might need to return to the mix sooner than later if stuff like this continues.
Yeah. Well, we have asked, we're trying to get, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about potential future guests, but there's Dr. Alex McDonald. We talked about on the show before. He recently left NASA as part of those cuts.
Yeah.
And he's amazing. And he wrote a great book about, I know you do. I know, that's why I feel like we've talked about him before, so I can out it. He wrote an amazing book that basically said that the commercial space age started in the 1800s, and I'm like, what? And it's all about lighthouses were commercially developed, privately developed.
Okay.
And it's fascinating. It's an unexpected twist on something. So anyway, let's move on to this one. I couldn't say this one better if I wrote it myself. Now, I don't know who Norm Mitchell is. The bottom here, it says,
oh, yes,
retired Marine combat vet, currently a strategic planner for Torch. I don't know who wrote this, but I am damn impressed. And I wish I had wrote it because it's that good.
It is. It is incredible. And he really spells it all out well.
He does.
Face the risks, seize the opportunities. That's what we're doing right now.
Right.
But he also, to be fair, he has a whole list down there, all those bullet points of, and they're all what I think of as we needs.
Right.
To make all that happen, we need
long range.
We need. That's a lot of we need.
Space transport, right?
And
like this is
daunting.
It is.
It needs to be spelled out.
Thank
God this guy did it for us.
Yeah. He really does. I don't think he was intending to make a case for Space Force as we in the industry have been kind of pointing towards a Coast Guard style role for Space Force.
Yep.
And this logistics and navigation security absolutely are paramount to that. But, if I were to write this in my business plan for a lunar elevator, I'd be like, checkbox, checkbox. Transfer stations, yes, checkbox. Transport ships, refueling, checkbox. This is basically the Liftport business model in a nutshell. So thanks, sir, for this. I was super happy about this. Tom, I had not read this article, so I am literally going to copy big chunks of this, and I'm going to look this guy up. So you did me a favor by pointing this one out to me.
Absolutely. I thought that was the coolest damn thing, and it just helps commercial everything because we know what's ahead of us and what we need to work toward. And so we had this. It's just one of those roll up your sleeves kind of articles,
right?
That just get you to go do stuff.
So we should have talked about this when we were talking about Isaacman and Faust's article. What a surprise! People don't like the budget cuts. Proposed. It's super important to note these are proposed cuts.
So, right. It's not for next year, and nobody's voted on them yet.
Right.
That's true.
But if this is coming down from on high, as that pass back document seems to imply, nobody is going to like this plan. It's called a pass back, and I'm like, all right. Nobody is going to like this plan, and I don't know how this minor amount of savings
is going to affect anything
closer to the moon or Mars.
No,
or both, right?
Or fiscal solvency.
Or
that savings won't even pay for 10 minutes on the national debt clock. Come on, man.
Tom and I don't always agree on everything. But boy, do we agree on that.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Let's have one more article. I was a little surprised when you opened your comments about the space station no one's ever heard of.
because I haven't heard of it. I've seen this thing, orbital reef design, all because VAST has
Right.
been taking all the oxygen out of the room
Right. Yeah.
for a couple of months.
Axiom before that.
Yeah,
True. That's totally true.
that's true. And so to see this thing going, what the hell is this, and why haven't I seen it before?
It's actually pretty remarkable.
It
I'm a little
is.
surprised you hadn't. So I'm up here in Seattle. Kent Blue Origin's headquarters is like, I don't know, 8 miles from me. So I know a lot about this thing. I'm disappointed that the world doesn't know that much about. In fact, I know the guy who actually came up with the phrase orbital reef.
Okay.
I've talked to 3. So Blue just cut a bunch of people in the last couple months, probably 6 or 8 weeks.
Well, a lot of the R&D guys.
And I've talked to a couple of them because they would be really handy on my team. So this is what Bezos has been building for about 3 or 4 years. They have a lot of partners on it, but it's all like the giganto primes. Most of the small space groups, space companies, are not really involved. So that's a little disappointing. I can't name the big old primes, but they're the giants that you would think of. Whereas Voyager, the folks that used to be nanoracks, they've really embraced small companies and entrepreneurial efforts, and I don't think their space station gets enough attention either. So, there's 6 space station organizations in play. Some of them are really well funded, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't know about them. Let's see, it's VAST, Max Space, Blue, Orbital Reef, Voyager, and Gravitics, and the giant one that's being funded by a crypto bro dude, which I can't remember his name. Maybe that's VAST. Is that VAST? That's VAST.
Yep.
All right, so maybe I got 5. I thought there was 6, but anyway.
Okay. Well,
that's a pretty big constellation of orbital space stations.
And if you talk to those guys, and you see, like Elon the other day said, "Yeah, well, we should up the timetable for splashing the ISS and get it done." You know what? All those private commercial guys are secretly applauding that. Let me tell you, because I got that from a couple of those guys at the symposium.
But you absolutely cannot have a gap. You cannot have a gap in crew.
And their argument is we can't move the needle forward either until that dinosaur is gone.
Right.
That's their point. That's their belief.
Right. I don't know that I agree with that, but
yeah, it's debatable, but
yeah,
they're pretty firm about it.
All right. Let's see. Let's see if is our guest online.
Our
here?
guest is on. Shall we go there?
Yeah,
I can go there right now because I just got a beautiful intro from him that is so much better than the crap I wrote earlier this evening. So I'm going to go ahead and read that.
Right.
And our guest tonight is in fact Igor Bobek from Croatia. And he's done amazing things with almost no money that we're going to talk about in the next half hour or so. He started a company called Avisa Space, and Avisa is a team of what he calls brave, persistent, and innovative individuals focused on enabling companies, organizations, and private individuals easier access to space. They strive to create a framework for better, easier, and safer access to off-world space assets and locations. Their primary focus is creating a framework for the space economy in a true sense of the word, which we're going to get him to define here in a minute. But through those activities, they drive, focus, and steer the creation of economic, financial, legal, and policy practices, interesting term, that will enable safe, secure, open, accessible use of space for everybody. And so together, they bring their business, legal, and policy experience to create, steer, and help navigate pioneering projects in space, on the moon, we'll talk about that, and beyond. Their mission is to kickstart the space economy by providing innovative solutions that will enable off-world business practices and create the framework for the space economy in the true sense of the word. And their vision is to establish economic, financial, legal, and political practices that will guide the development of the space economy and human settlement of space. Awesome. Igor,
welcome.
Welcome.
Oh,
and thanks for being here. I know it's 2 a.m. there,
hello.
And it's
2:30 now. 2:30 now.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for I love doing the live show, but I know it complicates things, right? It's and we have a fair amount of guests from Europe, like a surprising amount of guests from Europe. And so everybody, we're always really grateful to that. So
No, I'm happy to be here regardless of the time. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Well, your part of the world is actually the most awkward time for us to do this. If we're talking to people in Africa or India, Australia or Japan, it's like this time the next morning. And so that's okay for them. They're up. There's their normal life. They get out of bed, have a cup of coffee. Good morning to you. Thanks for having me on the show. But it's 2 a.m. So
all the worst.
Thank you for coming. Now tell me this.
You see how persistent.
Okay. I got the impression from everything I'm reading, you have something on the moon right now, yes? Tell us about that, please. And how the hell did you get it there?
Okay, could we just back up for a second? And...
No, I want to hear this.
Okay, all right, go.
Then we'll back up.
Okay.
All right. You got something on the moon. Like, how badass is that?
Yes, I do.
It's pretty
badass.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. Let's just break the barrier. So, I did a mission to start the first company on the moon, right? And I established my office on the moon in March. I took a claim of incorporation, which was notarized by the public notary here in Croatia, in Zagreb. And this marks actually the first step or the first try to establish a company somewhere beyond where we used to live. Or where we live right now, and but this is not going to be the place in the future where we are only going to live. So that's.
So you built you have your company and you incorporated it on the moon, and this isn't like that guy down in Arizona that's selling plots of the moon, right? As a real legal transaction.
No, so well, it's not. I'm not selling anything like that guy from Arizona. So I'm not trying to push anybody into buying any kind of property or any kind of even not to buy my company. I don't want to sell it that fast, right? I mean, I would like to have it for some time. But anyway, it's different because well, for one thing, I actually have something up there, right? So I can claim that I really have something up there. So the second thing is the way that I did it is not to circumvent any kind of law or any kind of international treaty. So I didn't do that. I was very careful, and I will explain how. And thirdly, this is not the only thing that I'm planning to do. So there are going to be follow-up missions, and there are going to be other private entities that are going to join me on my follow-up missions. And well, 1 company or 10 companies at a time, we're slowly going to start and building a small, but a steady ecosystem, where we are going to, a couple of companies at a time, we're going to create, something that is permanent, something that is relevant, and something new that it's not just 1 company and 1 guy with a crazy idea. It's a couple of companies, and it's more and more companies who share the vision and who want and see this as a potential or as a viable future for them. Sorry if sometimes I pause. As I said, it's 2:30 p.m. here, so sometimes I
Sure,
have
sure,
to
sure,
gather my
sure.
thoughts. But thank you.
All right. So why did you incorporate?
Yeah.
Like ignoring how much
Why?
did it cost and how did you do it and what's up there now that's your equipment, your headquarters. Like ignoring all that for a second, why did you do this?
Well, I wish I could tell you a really great story about how I did a lot of research and how I thought about that, but the idea came to me during lockdown, during COVID time, and I started my other company, Visa Europe, which was in a totally different segment of business. And I was sitting on my balcony, and it was a clear night. The moon was full, and I was, in this process of, administration, paperwork, and everything. And I was like, it'd be cool to have a company up there, and ideas come to my head, and they usually leave, which is good for me. But this one kind of stuck the day after, and a couple of days after, and a week after, and a month after. So I started doing some research on whether anybody has done that and whether that's possible. And it turned out that nobody has ever attempted to do something like this. Okay. So yeah, anyway, and I tried to find anything relatable, and then I found that guy from Arizona, which you talked about, who was selling property on the moon. And I said, well, I just don't want to do just how you guys say a fluke, right? I want to do something that is, I want this to be something that will bring more and more and more. Okay. And but somebody had to do it first. Okay. So I said, well, it might as well be me, because somebody's going to do it sometime in the future. And so it might as well be me. And I think I have a good idea, because, well, I'm not selling anything, as I say, and I'm not claiming anything that isn't kind of in accordance maybe with any kind of treaty or with any kind of law. Now, there are a lot of problems with this project, with opening, just registering or incorporating, however you want, a company in a digital office on the moon. So it's not just that, that I think technology is the least problematic. Everything else is extremely problematic.
It's national
So,
policy,
yeah.
it's international policy that has to decide
Right.
that that's a legal thing that you did. Yeah.
However, the issue that we're also tackling here, we're used to doing business on Earth where there's a sovereign, where there's sovereignty, where there's somebody that can tell you, okay, we recognize your company. So on the moon, you don't have that, right? You don't have a sovereign that is going to tell you, okay, you're incorporating a company on the moon, and this is your address. These are the documents that you have to give us. This is this amount of money you have to pay us. So there's nothing like that. Okay, so that's good, because it opens up a playing field. So it's an opportunity, but it's also a danger, because one of the reasons why sovereignty is good is if you incorporate a company, then it's legally, recognizable, and you have protection in case somebody tries to dispute anything. So at this moment, there is no legal protection of what I did. However, this project brought a little bit of attention to Croatia, and hopefully to the Croatian government, who didn't really take me seriously. So, I wanted to showcase this way that, look, I'm serious. I'm not just a guy who called you up and told you I have a great project and then never called again.
Right.
I actually did it. So this puts me in a really a better position to maybe, discuss terms with them. But because I would like to make this, legally binding or as solid as possible, so that I have an okay from my own country here on Earth. That would be great. If that's doesn't happen, then I have a plan B, and it's a little bit longer and a little bit more complicated. But this is an opportunity for me as much as it is for them. So yeah. But if you want me to talk about what actually is
I
up
want to
there,
go a little further on this. So you're using so Estonia kind of broke ground on this even before the pandemic, around 2008, 17, 18. They created something like a digital embassy, right? And that's what that kind of sparked. I know this because we've had other conversations, and I've talked to Coben, one of the people you work with, right? So I have a little bit of background there. But so talk about the digital embassy element and why that matters. And even though it's not your country, it's still like your neighboring country, basically. But by American standards, it's your next door neighbor. Talk about what a digital embassy looks like for them, and why you think that those rules have value to you.
Well, when we envisioned this project and we wanted to do this, we didn't really want to create, well, we will, but we wanted to take practices that are already recognizable here on Earth, and we wanted to transfer them into space. Okay, so we didn't really come with a really huge innovation in any kind of legal or anything sense. I mean, it's an innovation because it's on another celestial body, but digital businesses, digital embassies, digital offices, anything that is digital and that can be, copied from the Earth into space, we wanted to do it that way. Now, why is that important? Because we wanted to, let's say that, you have a digital embassy like Estonia, you have digital businesses, you have digital offices, and these are the elements that we wanted to take into account when we built our project and when we envisioned this mission, future missions. Okay, so we do not want to create something alien or something completely different. Look, there's enough best practice examples here on Earth, and just transfer them into space and do it. The digital thing about this is, so if there were no digital embassies, if there were no digital offices, if there were no digital, companies or anything like that, we would not probably be doing this, if everything was still, paper and everything. But the digital gave me the idea that I didn't, as I told you, I didn't circumvent any kind of law or treaty, right? I do not claim that I own property on the moon is in real estate sense. I don't claim to own land. I don't claim to own a part of the moon or even be the king of the moon for that matter. So I rented a digital space on a lander, right, on a hard drive there, and I took that piece of a couple of megabytes or whatever for a digital office. And this digital office holds my incorporation document. And this digital office is the first address that I have as a company, right? But it had to be a digital office. It had to be, it had to carry a claim of incorporation. It had to be notarized by the public notary here in Croatia to make it a little more serious. And it had to just take all it had to combine all the practices. We wanted to do a little bit more in the mission, but there was, we in talks with the government, we kind of lost time. And the mission that we wanted to go to was, we were late, so we didn't do it that way. But then I didn't want to wait anymore. And then I just took this incorporation document and said, okay, I claim to incorporate the first company here on our neighbor on our celestial body on the moon. Follow-up missions are going to be what I really wanted to do, and that's a little bit more like business transactions, emails, even transfer of property, if we can do that between one entity to another. Now that might sound like not much, but legally that's a nightmare. And we want to tackle that as much as possible with some ideas that we have, and maybe make the process a little bit more easy, a little bit more recognizable, and hopefully, with strength of numbers, of course, we can make it relevant and we can make it visible.
Got a question on that kind of thing. When you talk about adding to that ecosystem and building more, digital companies in digital space, but it's in this physical spot, it's on the moon on a hard drive somewhere. Are you going to add digital banking to that mix?
Well, maybe. Banking is something that we've taken into account, but in the inception of the project, we wanted to do physical or how to say, normal currencies like the euro, like the dollar. But then we kind of segued from that, because we wanted a universal currency.
Sure.
Something like that, and we said that crypto would be a good idea. Now, not any crypto, because there are a lot of currencies. We thought about Bitcoin because it's the most recognizable one, and it's the strongest one, maybe. It's the most universal. It's not the only one, but we can do that. The idea, if we can do a transaction, if we can, let's say, get a bank to follow us on that one, that would be cool. But if we can do that, it doesn't matter if we do a transaction of 0.001
Sure.
Bitcoin. The idea is just to do it for the first time, to show that we can do it, to prove the concept, and then following up on that, we can do that maybe we can create a lunar coin. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. We can mint it on the moon. That also gives another added value. We can do a lot. We can do a lot, but the first step had to be made, and I made it. So everything else that is going to go on from now is just going to be okay. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be long. It's going to be tiresome. But then again, it's going to be worth doing. So.
Now you have, in your introductory statement, you have talked about you want to create a better framework for easier and safer access and help navigate pioneering projects in space. Okay, you want to kickstart a new space economy. What does that look like?
In the true sense of the word, yeah. Okay, so yeah, a couple of people have asked me, what do you mean the space economy in the true sense of the word? So, right now we have an economy for space. We do not have space economy in a way that, you have two worlds, for instance, and then you transact. It's like international, economy where you have two countries, or if you have, the European Union with many countries, and then you have the United States, for instance, so that's normal, but this would be the space economy that I see, where you have, two bodies that are two places that are really, really far away, but you do business between them, or you do business on one and on the other. And at one point in the future, I hope, these worlds will come together and do transactions, and transact and do trade and, exchange goods, and services. So that's kind of where the future is slowly but surely taking us.
Right? There's a concept that Kobina Hughes came up with. It's one of the people that works on Igor's team, that was really talking about money that is spent on orbit stays on orbit until it is repatriated back down to Earth. So it's not taxed until it winds up in a sovereign environment. And to me, that was the light bulb moment that said, oh, this could really work, right? That right now, if Space Force wants to contract with Orbit Fab for refueling, the transactions are happening down here on the ground, but the activity is happening in orbit. But if you have, and so the transactions are happening on the ground, so they're being taxed on the ground, and that's an earthly ecosystem, economic ecosystem, right? But if we're going to make a cislunar ecosystem, cislunar econosphere, then transactions that happen in the sky stay in the sky until they come back down to the ground. And I find that idea fascinating and thrilling, and I'm 100% convinced. It took a while for it to sink in with me. Kobina and I probably had 8 or 10 conversations over the last 3 or 4 years over this. But I definitely bought into it. I think it's useful to talk about kind of flags of convenience. Can you talk about your partner for a second? Because I'm going to add something that I know that other people don't necessarily know. So talk about how you got up there, a little bit, whatever you want to say about cost, because you did a lot with a little. I understand that you've got some NDAs, so don't.
Yeah, I can't really do with the prices, but it was really I didn't really expect that. Okay, so I was kind of wanting to reduce the price because well, why not? But I didn't really expect it to go like that. But it's not something that I can't tell you the exact number or the exact amount. So because it's not like it's
Right. No,
nothing.
nothing.
That's not that. It's just that it was, and I don't want it to sound cheap. That's not. It's not the point. The point is that I had this idea, and it kind of took me a while just to put all the pieces together, right? And then to build my own name as well, and to get recognizable within this sector. And then I did slowly but surely. I met a couple of great people. I met Kobina. I took this my friend Stefan, who's actually had the most experience in the space sector of all of us. He kind of helped me navigate through all this. And Grant Blaisdell from Copernic Space. He also was a really great supporter. And he kind of told me that he was always pushing me to do it. And at one point I was really scared.
Really
But
scared.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I was. Not only should it fail, but what if it succeeds? That was kind of the fear that I also had. This is not a project, that you have like we're building I don't know, the James Webb Space Telescope. That's something concrete. That's something you can touch. Starting a company and tackling legal issues and sovereignty issues. That's something that might be boring to some people, and might be funny. It might be, ridiculous, but it's extremely important because, look at the world we live in. It's, without law and without regulation, it would be maybe much more difficult, to work with. And, as I told you at the beginning, safety of, doing business is also something that is very important for us, so that's what we want to do. But, yeah, Kobina has been a really, really great help and a really, really great friend. I am very happy we don't see eye to eye all the
Yeah.
time, but that's good, because the best ideas come out of that.
He's
But,
an attorney.
as you said,
He's
a
an
brilliant guy.
attorney, which is like by nature a rule follower, and you're an entrepreneur, so you see opportunities at the edges. That's always going to happen.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
talk about your partners, because I do want to talk about something about them. So who are they, and what happened? What happened?
Okay, so yeah, so my main part was the company Copernic Space, and they actually are they're a company that kind of helps not only companies but also private individuals, not only to go into space but to digitalize and tokenize their space assets. They have this great idea of tokenizing space as a means of funding space projects, and as a means of getting more money into the space sector, and not only more decentralized money, but more people who are willing to take the risk. So that's something that they are trying to open up for people. Not only access to space, but also access to space assets. And that this is kind of the something that got me interested, because they were kind of the company that I really wanted and needed. And it was really, really, I was really happy. And Inara Tabir, actually, she kind of introduced me to Graham Blaisdell and kind of signposted me that way. So it was really something that, as you said, talk about your partners. There are really a lot of them, and then I shouldn't leave out anybody, but we don't have the time to talk about all of them right now. LifeShip was actually the company that the pyramid on the moon that they took. This is where the hard drive was, and actually this is where our digital office is located. This is something that they contributed so much. And Ben is a really great guy. He believed in the project, and he kind of believes in me a little bit. So even though we've never met face to face, the only thing that we've met, kind of like
Right,
you've only met online, because
they're good guys. They're good guys at
far away.
LifeShip, but they were in part of our competition like 4 years ago.
Yeah, they were. So we had at the kind of some of the worst parts of the pandemic, 2021, the Center for Space Commerce and Finance had a contract with the Foundation for the Future. Tom, how many competitions do y'all host? 4, 3 of them?
In the end, 3.
3.
We did 3. We did 2 in 2021 and 1 in the last one in early 22.
Right, and they sponsored a $5,000 prize. And LifeShip, I think they were in the second one,
They're
or
in the second one.
yeah, did they win that one? I don't remember who won.
No, they did not.
The guy with the bugs won one. That one's very memorable.
That was the first one. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, LifeShip, they did well.
They did well.
Yeah. So it's kind of amazing that, you know, they come through this program and then wind up on the moon. So you never know, right?
I love love folks like that. I always love, I'm making a list of everyone who's been through our program that is like done really well.
Right. Yeah.
There's been a lot of them. So
yeah. If you'll allow me, just one more thing, and I should have stated that at the beginning, but I didn't. The incorporation of a company is not the only thing that I took to the moon with me. And I wanted to do something that was for Croatia and for the kids, because I've been involved in promoting space education here in Zagreb, and it turned out that I'm promoting it in the entire country. So, well, anyway, all the kids that participated in the space education program, starting from Zagreb, my home city, to other cities here in Croatia, I kind of got the idea to tell them that they should draw something and digitize those drawings, and we should send them to the moon as a means of, you know, inspiring kids from grade 1 to grade 7, you know, to be able to, you know, have something on the lunar surface. And I didn't really expect many replies, but it turned out that there was just an enormous amount of appreciation and an enormous amount of, you know, people really interested in doing that, and not just the kids, but the teachers as well, and their parents as well, and they were really happy. They were on TV, you know, when this mission came out, and then they were speaking about, you know, their school and their vision about, you know, what they see in space, and you could see the smile on their faces. And, you know, this was something to inspire. In Croatia, we don't have that much space education. You know, this is kind of also a pioneering project to get space into schools, and, you know, to get it on a more regular basis, not just one lecture by a famous astronomer, but, you know, you have like the entire semester, once a week, you have space education. So this is something that we're also trying to do, and we've also been doing that by ourselves. You know, the only people we can count on are the teachers, and I want to thank them for this. And we've done this with the Lady Rocket Foundation also. They were actually the ones that kind of pushed us in, or me actually, in the schools into doing that, and they've been really great in supporting us and connecting us with kids from Lompoc, California. So, you know, those kids also have kind of pals in that part of the world. So I see this not only as a pioneering mission, but also as an inspiration mission, at least for Croatia, you know, and for the Croatian kids.
You went up Intuitive Machines?
No. Actually, this was another lander. This was done
Firefly.
by Firefly.
Firefly. Okay, great. Yeah, terrific.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. But we didn't officially partner with them, so that's something I want to stress out. Our partner is Copernic Space, you know, and LifeShip is supporting them. So
no, I get it. You know, there's a lot of things that have to happen to get something on the moon, right? Pardon me, sorry. Well, I think that's pretty fascinating. There's some comments in the chat about, you know, is this going to be kind of a lunar tax haven? Is that something you're thinking? No. Okay.
No.
All right.
No.
I think, this is my opinion, I think there's an element of flags of convenience to this, where in the same way that the Bahamas and Panama is a registry for gigantic ocean-going ships, and the Bahamas do a bunch of registries for tourism ships, cruise ships, and
but for company, it could also be right here in the United States, like Delaware and Nevada.
Right. Wyoming's got a specialty in crypto companies. Yeah. So I do think there's something, maybe you don't like the word tax haven, but I do think that there's value in being a registry business.
Right. Or a port authority model, even if it got bigger, you know, the same kind of thing. They're independent.
The thought did
Yeah.
cross our mind.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, the thought did cross our minds, and that's something that we would want. It is something that is interesting to us. Look, the moon is not only a good, let's say, tourism destination in the future. It has resources, right? And those resources, will be utilized in the future, one way or the other. I mean, it's for space travel, for people living there. If people are going to live on the moon, I think they will, and not only on the moon, but even beyond. So, the moon is and it's also quite close to us in astronomical terms. Mars is pretty far away. It takes long to get there. Of course, if we have better engines, then we are going to be there faster. But it's still pretty far away. If you send a crew up there, they're going to be there for a very long time. On the moon, you don't have to be that long. You can really do a really shorter trip. So the moon is actually the first step in anything that we're going to do in space. That's the way I see it. That's the way that I think it's going to be. We're not going to go to Pluto right away, right? We're going to take it one step at a time, and I think that's how things should be done. And that's also why we did this project. We did it one step at a time. Okay, let's incorporate a company, let's claim that. Okay, let's say the corporation government can legalize that in a way, that it can be protected. If they don't, we have a plan B. So it's always one step at a time. One one small step for a visa, one generally for entrepreneurs. And I have to finish with this. I think that once SpaceX, Blue Origin, and all those companies came out, space travel became much more interesting, much more accessible, much more easy. Let's say it's not easy, but it became cheaper. So private businesses might be the ones that are going to push the IR expansion into the cosmos. Maybe even faster and maybe more resilient. I don't know.
Absolutely. We'll and see. On that, Igor Bobek, Renaissance man. And you're doing some amazing things, and I hope a lot of people follow your example, and that we just keep building from here. This is absolutely great. I'm glad we had you on the show tonight, and thank you so much for being with us and staying up so late to be with us. We really appreciate it. We will have you back, I guarantee you.
Thank you. I'd love to be back, and I can't believe
3 o'clock in the morning, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, Michael. Good to see you as well.
Thanks.
Nice. I have this thing. I'm gonna just to finish it off tonight. Actually, Monday the 21st. I want to let you know that our guest will be none other than Walt Anderson, telecom entrepreneur, 2 unicorns to his name, space investor, funder of organizations such as the International Space University and the Space Frontier Foundation. And he's going to be with us. The guy's a legend, and for transparency, he's also my boss at Ave Alto. So we're going to have a fun conversation about the present and the future of space development through his eyes, because he's been there at the very beginning and he's done it all. So you're looking forward to that show next Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Now, just before I leave, I have a kind of a final comment about a final comment that I made a week ago. I've been getting a lot of feedback from it. I talked about the tendency with history and all that. Maybe you guys remember some of this, and the part where I said that every human being across history has said, I am here, I lived, I loved, I made something. Please do not forget me. Well, I thought about that a lot, and it's very important, and I think it's very, very true, even to this day. And I came to the conclusion that most of today's social media posts, going back at least 15 years, are basically, by this philosophy, a cry for help. Anyway, from the news desk at the Center for Space Commerce and Finance, I am Thomas Andrew Olson. Keep watching the skies.